Did you know there was a time when glossy magazines showed doctors in lab coats recommending cigarettes, while comic books promised mail-order X-ray specs that could see through your skin? Once, millions trusted miracle tonics, weight gain pills, and even kept tiny sea monkey pets at home. Some fads so embedded in everyday life that nobody questioned their safety or sense. Why did these 20 strange features vanish from our magazines? And what can their disappearance tell us about how culture, trust, and danger shaped a vanished era? This is the real story behind 20 strange things in old magazines that have disappeared. And some of these forgotten pages might make you wonder how normal today's world really is. A smiling doctor in a crisp white coat, stethoscope draped around his neck, holds up a cigarette with the confidence of a trusted expert. In the 1940s and 50s, these images filled the pages of glossy magazines. Headlines boasted survey results, 113,597 doctors asked, and supposedly, most chose Camels. The message was clear: if medical professionals smoked, cigarettes must be safe. These ads didn't just sell tobacco, they sold trust, borrowing the authority of science to ease any doubts. Of course, the so-called surveys were as carefully constructed as the ads themselves, often involving free samples handed out at conventions and tallied for dramatic effect. The medical journals, too, ran these ads for years, their pages a strange blend of research and reassurance. It took the 1964 Surgeon General's report and a wave of public health warnings to sweep these endorsements away, leaving behind a legacy that now feels almost surreal. Today, those old magazine spreads are more likely to spark disbelief than desire. What does it say about a culture when the family doctor becomes the face of a dangerous habit? Flip a few pages deeper, and the mood shifts from medical authority to pure imagination. Cartoon boys, eyes wide behind swirling spiral glasses, peer from comic book corners. For just 50 cents, mail-order X-ray specs promise the impossible: the power to see through skin, walls, or even clothes. The secret? A feather or cardboard inside the lens, creating a blurry double image. Nothing more than a parlor trick. Yet, for generations of kids, the ad was irresistible. The thrill of a hidden world, just a postage stamp away. Disappointment was almost guaranteed, but the legend of X-ray specs lives on in pop culture, a punchline for gullibility and childhood dreams that never quite worked out as planned. Which of today's toys will tomorrow's adults remember with the same mixture of nostalgia and embarrassment? Elsewhere in those same magazines, another kind of transformation beckoned. Bold headlines shouted, "Skinny, add pounds and be attractive." In an era when curves were the ideal, women's magazines filled their pages with before and after drawings and smiling models, all promising that a tonic or supplement could deliver instant glamour. For a time, gaining weight was the fashionable goal, and the market responded with powders, pills, and promises. By the late 1960s, the tide turned. Suddenly, thinness was in, and the same magazines that once urged women to bulk up began selling the opposite message. The FDA cracked down on false claims, and the old ads faded away. Yet echoes remain, in protein shakes, in influencer pitches, in the ever-shifting standards that define the perfect body. How quickly does one generation's beauty advice become the next's cautionary tale? From doctors in lab coats to comic book illusions and body-shaping tonics, the pages of old magazines reveal a world where trust and wonder were easily bought, and just as easily lost. In the back pages of comic books, a tiny kingdom promised magic in a glass tank. Sea monkeys, drawn as smiling, crown-wearing families, lounged in underwater castles and waved to their new owners. The reality was less regal. Invented in 1957 by Harold von Braunhut, sea monkeys were actually brine shrimp, hardy, almost invisible creatures that sprang to life after being dropped into water. The ads, illustrated by comic artist Joe Orlando, spun a fantasy far beyond what arrived in the mail. Children eager for instant pets found themselves squinting at a few wriggling specks, not the playful, trainable friends they had been promised. Still, the story didn't end at disappointment. Sea monkeys became a pop culture icon, their packaging and booklets building a world of imagination that outlasted the product's brief thrill. Von Braunhut, a figure as colorful as his creations, built an empire on the power of mail-order wonder, though later revelations about his extremist ties cast a shadow over his legacy. Even so, the sea monkey craze paved the way for digital pets and virtual creatures, echoing the same mix of hope and letdown that defined the original kits. Turn a few more pages, and the promise of transformation takes on a different form. Ornate bottles with swirling labels, Lydia Pinkham's vegetable compound, Radam's microbe killer, beckoned from magazine spreads, each claiming to cure everything from headaches to female complaints. These cure-alls thrived in the late 1800s and early 1900s, a time when medical science was mysterious and regulation almost non-existent. The bottles often contained alcohol, opiates, or secret blends of herbs, sold as family remedies and endorsed by glowing testimonials. For many, these tonics offered hope in a bottle, but the reality could be dangerous, even deadly. Investigative journalists like Samuel Hopkins Adams exposed the hidden risks, and public outrage grew as stories of addiction and poisoning surfaced. In 1906, the Pure Food and Drug Act changed everything. For the first time, companies had to list ingredients and back up their claims. Federal inspectors, led by Dr. Harvey Wiley, seized shipments and prosecuted fraud, forcing hundreds of cure-all brands off the shelves. Magazine ads shifted overnight, from wild promises to cautious, regulated health advice. Antique bottles now sit on collectors' shelves, relics of a time when hope and skepticism collided in the pages of every magazine. Would you trust a miracle tonic today, or does the fine print make all the difference? A glass bottle glowing faintly on a bathroom shelf, a wristband promising endless energy, a tonic said to restore youth. These were not props from science fiction, but real products once advertised in mainstream magazines. In the 1920s, the word radioactive was a mark of progress, not a warning. Health tonics like Radithor, laced with radium, claimed to cure fatigue and restore vitality. Steel magnate Eben Byers became the most famous believer, drinking bottle after bottle until his jaw began to disintegrate. Byers' slow public decline and death in 1932 forced a reckoning. His testimony, delivered from a hospital bed, described the agony of radiation poisoning. His story made headlines and spurred federal action. Regulations tightened, and the glowing promise of radium faded into infamy. On another page, a small tin of arsenic wafers sat nestled among beauty secrets. Victorian magazines praised these pills as the secret to flawless porcelain skin. Arsenic, they claimed, would clear redness and brighten complexions. The danger was poorly understood, even as some women developed numbness, digestive troubles, or worse. Advice columns and beauty editors repeated the claims, and for decades, the tins kept selling. Only after the link to poisoning was undeniable did these products disappear, swept away by new laws and changing attitudes. Today, those tins sometimes resurface in antique shops, a chilling reminder of the risks people once took for beauty. Flip to the back of a comic book from the 1960s or 70s, and you might spot a baby monkey peering out from a crate, advertised for less than $20. The promise? An exotic pet, delivered to your door. Animal welfare was an afterthought. Postal inspectors reported chaos, crates arriving with terrified, sick, or dead animals. Testimony from postal workers described the noise, the smell, the heartbreak. Public outrage grew, and by the late 1970s, shipping live monkeys by mail was banned. What seemed like harmless novelty revealed a darker side of unchecked marketing. Which of today's trends will tomorrow's readers find just as reckless? A magazine left on the coffee table might look harmless, but some issues from the late 1960s and early 1970s hid instructions for building rockets, homemade explosives, or even Molotov cocktails. Fringe publications, underground zines, and mail-order catalogs sometimes ran step-by-step guides, their diagrams detailed enough to catch the attention of law enforcement. In 1970, a brownstone in Greenwich Village exploded when members of the Weather Underground tried to assemble nail bombs using recipes pieced together from these very sources. FBI investigators combed through the rubble and traced the instructions to articles clipped from Underground Press and the notorious Anarchist Cookbook, a title openly advertised in counterculture magazines at the time. The aftermath was swift. Publishers faced raids, the Explosives Control Act tightened distribution, and what had once been sold as radical science or edgy do-it-yourself vanished from public view. Today, the idea of a magazine printing bomb schematics feels unthinkable, a reminder of an era when the boundaries of information seemed almost limitless, and sometimes dangerously so. On a different page, a woman in a tidy dress stands in her living room, a thick belt strapped around her waist and wires trailing to a humming control box. Electric beauty belts promised vitality, weight loss, and a shortcut to health with the flip of a switch. Magazine ads from the 1920s through the 1950s showed smiling models, hands on hips, as if a gentle buzz could melt pounds away. But the reality was less glamorous. Medical journals reported burns, shocks, and even heart complications from faulty belts. By the late 1950s, the FDA cracked down, seizing shipments and banning interstate sales of the most dangerous models. The Federal Trade Commission fined companies that made wild health claims, and consumer warnings appeared in newspapers. Despite the risks, the allure of effortless transformation kept these gadgets alive in memory, their clunky designs and empty promises now fodder for collectors and comedians alike. What new miracle device will tomorrow's generation look back on with the same mixture of disbelief and amusement? A cartoon camel in sunglasses once lounged across magazine pages, his grin promising more than just a cigarette. Joe Camel was the tobacco industry's answer to Mickey Mouse, a mascot so recognizable that by the early 1990s, American children could identify him as easily as any cartoon hero. The campaign's playful tone masked a calculated push to make smoking look harmless, even fun. Millions poured into these mascots, from penguins to dancing clowns, all designed to turn a deadly habit into a childhood fantasy. By 1998, mounting evidence and public outrage forced the industry to retire its mascots, their images now reminders of a time when selling vices meant selling a smile. In the 1950s, atomic symbols and space-age fonts swept through American branding. Atomic-powered toothbrushes and radiation-inspired blankets promised a future shaped by science, even if the products themselves were ordinary. The word atomic became shorthand for progress, splashed across clocks and kitchen gadgets. As optimism gave way to nuclear anxiety, the atomic craze faded, leaving behind a trail of collectible oddities and retro design. Elsewhere, a bar of soap claimed to melt fat away, its packaging adorned with dramatic before and after sketches. Sold from the 1920s through the 1940s, these soaps promised an easy fix for beauty worries. The FDA eventually exposed the fraud, pulling the products from shelves, but the fantasy of effortless transformation lingered. Modern detox teas and slimming creams echo the same promises, dressed up for a new generation. Candy cigarettes blurred the line between play and imitation. Boxes mimicked real brands, filled with chalky sugar sticks that let children pretend to smoke. Health advocates pushed back in the 1970s, leading to bans, though a few novelty packs still survive. Mechanical vibration belts once promised effortless slimming, their ads filled with clinical diagrams and bold claims. By the late 1970s, medical experts and the FTC had dismissed the machines as quackery, yet the dream of an easy fix endures, always ready for its next playful disguise. A hypnotist in a velvet suit promises mastery of the mind by mail, offering step-by-step booklets and cryptic diagrams for a few dollars. In the 1950s and 60s, these hypnosis kits fed the hunger for self-improvement and secret knowledge. The claims, confidence, persuasion, even control over others, proved irresistible until real psychology advanced and the scams unraveled. What remains are odd manuals and stories, relics of a time when belief in hidden powers ran high. Another ad shows a scrawny cartoon figure mocked at the beach, only to return as a muscle man after following the Charles Atlas Dynamic Tension program. Atlas's mail-order fitness course became a pop culture staple, selling millions of booklets to boys chasing instant transformation. Fiercely protective of his name, Atlas won court cases in the 1930s to drive out imitators, securing his place in advertising history. Yet as gyms and TV workouts took over, the mail-order miracle faded, and those before and after drawings became a punchline in cartoons and sitcoms. Glossy magazine spreads once promised easy fortune through chinchilla farming. In the late 1950s, ads showed smiling families and plush animals, selling the dream of riches from home breeding. The post-war boom fueled the craze, but by 1957, the market collapsed. Bankruptcy filings tell of families losing savings and homes as the fur bubble burst, turning quick wealth dreams into cautionary tales. Soap wrappers once held secret value. During radio's golden age, housewives mailed stacks of wrappers to claim jewelry or collectibles tied to their favorite cereals. These premiums turned chores into a game of loyalty, linking families to dramas and sponsors. As television rose and advertising changed, the wrapper for prizes era faded, but the trinkets remained prized by collectors. Magazine spreads painted domed cities, flying cars, and robotic maids, visions of endless progress in the 1950s and 60s. Artists like Arthur Radabaugh captured the era's optimism, but oil crises and economic setbacks dimmed those dreams. Retro-futurist art now stands as a reminder of what once seemed possible. What will tomorrow make of today's promises? In 1946, the phrase, "More doctors smoke camels," appeared in print, capturing how authority was used to sell dangerous products. Across these 20 vanished magazine features, we've seen how trust in experts, fascination with novelty, and shifting beauty ideals shaped what was considered normal. Many of these practices disappeared after scientific evidence, regulatory action, or public outcry exposed their risks, from radium tonics banned after fatal poisonings to mail-order monkeys outlawed for animal welfare. Yet, some questions remain, such as how many unregulated products circulated before the 1906 Pure Food and Drug Act, or how widespread the belief in miracle cures truly was. Today, echoes of these magazine trends survive in nostalgic collectibles and revived fads, reminding us that yesterday's mainstream can quickly become tomorrow's cautionary tale. The record shows that cultural norms change, but the need for skepticism and evidence remains constant.